Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. Today we have the honor and pleasure to have Gangaji here, who is a renowned spiritual teacher and award-winning author, and she's coming to Seattle on April 5th. So we're thrilled to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I wanted to find out, I'm new to your practice and don't know a lot about you, so I wanted to start talking about your vision and your mission. Which you state on your website is to shift your allegiance from the activities of the mind to the internal presence of being. Is that still your vision and mission?
Well, I appreciate the words vision and mission.
Yeah.
And in that sense, yes, this is still and always what my role is in people who happen to see me or are drawn to see me, is really to point to that which is always and already at peace within you, the truth of yourself. So obviously we live in a very complex world, and we have complex emotions and appropriately complex reactions. But underneath all of that is a ground of being that, I don't want to make it simplistic, but it's free of complications and it's free of simplicity. It's deeper, and it's who you are. It's the truth of yourself. So yes, that's my vision in meeting whoever I meet.
Yeah, and what, I can hear those words and say, yes, I want that, but I'm not really sure what I even am saying yes to. So help me understand when that means to be, and to tap into that internal presence of being. What does that mean for people who may not even have felt that at all?
Well, I generally start conversations with people asking them what they want. I mean, this very question, what do you want? And we have ideas of what we want. Certainly, we want good relationships. We want peace on earth. We want to feel good. We want our health back or a good job, whatever it may be, however deep it may be or however superficial. But if we take that answer and then we ask ourselves, if I got that I want, what would that give me? Then you get to see a little deeper of really what is wanted in your lifetime. And most people who are drawn to the spiritual side of things look at that and discover that actually what they want is peace, or what they want is love, or what they want is rest. And the good news is that peace is here. It is actually your nature, that underneath all of our cloaks and clothings, the nature, the nakedness of yourself is peace. It's the same as the nature that we see outside. It doesn't mean that storms don't come up and that things don't get washed away. We will all die, and we will, most of us, get sick at some point and get well or die, just as in nature. But also, many people overlook the natural, free peace of being. And so it's my role in those who are drawn to this to point that out and then to support you in discovering it for yourself. Because I'm not interested in just spouting off some teachings and getting agreement or disagreement from that. I'm really interested in inquiry, which is the discovery for yourself. What is here? What do I want? What will that give me?
So when you were on your own journey, when it started off, what did you want? And I know that you've met Papaji and you've had lots of different paths. What did you want when you started your journey, and as you progressed on your journey, how did what you want change?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
What I wanted when I actually started was I was looking for a man.
Okay.
I had
And
been
it wasn't
married.
God or Shiva. It was just a man,
Well,
a
just a
regular
man.
human man.
I had in my mind what that man would be like or even look like. And
Yeah.
I had divorced my first husband. I was a single mom. I wanted a man. I wanted a protector. That's the way I was seeing it. But also someone that I could really meet and could meet me in a deep way. And I met a man, and that man, who is Eli, we're still in partnership, wanted something else more than he wanted me, and that something else was truth. And this was so striking to me that in that moment I actually fell in love with truth. As I fell in love with the man that I had wanted, I got much more than I could have imagined, which was the beginning of my spiritual search, really. It was a time when spirituality was really crackling in the Bay Area. I was living in California then, and so I began a search and went through different forms of teachings, primarily Tibetan Buddhism, but other teachings, Zen Buddhism and New Age teachings, create your reality kind of teachings. And 20 years later, I had beautiful experiences, and I had really a very successful life in my view. I had enough money. I had a really great relationship, and I was active. I was a practicing acupuncturist by then, and yet something was still missing. So when I asked myself the question, what could I want now? I've actually gotten what I wanted. I got the man. And in addition to that, I got a beautiful spiritual orientation. And I realized I didn't know what was missing, but I knew something was missing. That it had nothing to do with all of my gains, which really had been many, or that I was even suffering necessarily, but there was some identity with myself as a sufferer. And I prayed for a teacher. So then what I wanted was a teacher.
A different
And
kind of person.
yes, it's still someone who could save me or fix me or
Yeah.
give me what was missing.
Yeah.
And my teacher stopped me in my tracks and pushed me back into myself. So I found that what I discovered was what had been here. Oh, and that's the peace and the love and the
That's
true
beautiful.
nature.
Beautiful. So going back, I just want to make sure I can track the story. So when you're in 20 years, you're with Eli and you're looking for the truth. He inspired you to look for the truth. The truth of like who am I? What's the world about? Like the metaphysical questions, or what truth were you exploring?
Well, the metaphysics were a part of it, but we just happened to be reading Taoist literature at the time, and so it was really an enlightened life or a righteous life, we were calling it. Enlightenment. We were searching for enlightenment, but I didn't have a clue what that could mean. I thought it must mean I would be happy all the time, or I didn't get that it meant the fulfillment of not searching for yourself, but
Outside
finding
of
yourself.
yourself.
Yes, finding yourself everywhere.
Right. Oh,
So
wow.
it
That's
was all
beautiful.
about practicing and getting to be better and having experiences and I did have different metaphysical viewpoints of how the world was or operated. But those were all changeable, and my practice was better at some times and worse at others. And so by the time that I met Papaji, I was really, I wouldn't say jaded, but I recognized that my experiences, beautiful experiences of oneness or perfection, were subject to coming and going. And I thought that a teacher could give me something that would make them always stay. And instead, my teacher said to me, what comes and goes is not real. Find out what is always here. And in order to find that out, I had to stop looking for anything.
Wow. Okay, I
Yeah.
just got chills all over. So, because I could relate to them, like, no, I'm doing that. I'm doing exactly what she's talking about. I have a teacher.
Mm.
I've had these beautiful metaphysical experiences, and in fact, I'm going down to Berkeley to see my teacher so that
Mm.
I can get kind of reoriented with the energy. And I've said to him several times, like, you're always with me, right? I mean, that's what you're saying, right? So
Yeah.
you're always with me. He's like, yeah, but I think that he's always with me because spirit is always with me.
Ah.
So I'm never lost. But I can understand that intellectually,
Mm.
but it's very hard to, I guess it's have faith. I mean, so how did you move from a place of, okay, I'm looking for truth. I know that truth is out there. I'm still suffering. I'm looking at a teacher, a man, which
Mm.
then came to
Mhm.
form of a teacher to help me, go to the next whatever enlightenment, which is what you were looking at. And you said your teacher pushed you back into yourself.
Mm.
What did that mean, and how can I do it myself?
Yeah.
If it
Well,
possible?
that's the question, and that's what I was asking him. How?
Yeah,
Tell me what to do.
yeah.
I didn't know if he would give me another practice or elaborate on the practices I had or a mantra
Mm-hmm.
and he said, stop right where you are.
Mm.
And I thought what that must mean was meditate.
Right.
So I got into a kind of meditative posture and I could feel my mind calming down and my breathing calming down. And he said, no, stop that too. And it hit me what he was saying was, well, maybe later I realized what he was saying was, in this moment, stop searching for anything.
Mm.
Stop right here where you are.
Mm.
And in hearing that and recognizing that this was coming from someone that I had really requested to tell me how, I took that very seriously. And there was a flood of fear, really.
Mm.
I realized that I was afraid that if I stopped, if I just didn't keep going and figuring it out and doing more and fixing myself and processing, that I felt that I would fall back into some abyss of
Yeah.
what I had been when I first started when I was 11, say, a kind of hell realm. And yet here I was with this teacher and he was not telling me anything. He was supporting me in actually being still
Mm.
and not taking a move toward anything or away from anything or against anything.
Oh,
Oh. Yeah.
I'm laughing because what do you know what my teacher tells me all the
Mm.
time? Be still, still. Don't do
Ah,
anything. Be still. And it is the hardest thing to do, to
yes,
be
you can't
still.
do it. You can't do it. It is impossible to do, but you can recognize what you are doing. And for most of us, that means some kind of mental activity. Am I getting it right? Is this it? Well, I'll do this. And you can stop that.
Mm.
And then you are quiet. Because quiet is nothing that can be done. It's already here.
Mm.
It's already underneath all the noise,
Mm.
good noise or bad noise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why at a certain point, there is no instruction because you've reached the end.
Right, it's like 20 years I've been meditating, doing mantras, holding my hands a certain way. And so it's stop all of it. When I'm hearing you
You,
say stop all of it,
or
just
stop trying
trying.
to get anything from any of it. Because
Mm.
then you're doing, you're going through mudras or mantras or activity or non-activity, but your mind is quiet. Because that's really what be quiet means.
Mm-hmm.
It's to recognize the noise of the mental activity and to recognize that we think that's reality. And that's actually a trance. That's a trance of suffering, even when it's a good life. It's an unnecessary suffering because we are somehow this object in our own minds. And if we're willing, which we have the experience of in in great moments in nature, or in a moment in the day where we're not even thinking in just this space, but to consciously recognize the pull of the mental body to create reality, which it does naturally for our own survival, but in a moment of inquiry as something deeper than your own survival. It's like, who am I? What is here? What is this?
So the stopping is, so I'll tell you my stops. So you can, and I'm sure you've seen lots of other stops with your students. But for me, when I'm in meditation, my teacher will say, "Stop trying to figure this out. There is no
Excellent.
knowing.
Yeah.
Stop trying to understand." I'm sitting there, I'm writing notes down on my notebook, and I'm trying. But when you said Booty did, is that that's he's like, stop. So that's like one level of stop that I've seen in myself. Stop. I'm trying to breathe a certain way. I think you said breathe coming down this way, and then am I doing it right? Am I, so there's this kind of stop trying to do a thing. There is no right. Just stop. There's the easy ones like stop the mental activity, stop the emotions, stop the trying to do something. What are the other kind of stops that you see? I mean, are you still even at the point that, or are you just like, like you just close your eyes and you're in stillness?
Well, there's a recognition when you stop, as you have experienced. When you take any of those examples that you gave, when you stop trying to get it through the notes, there's a split second where you're just open, where you don't even know what you're receiving, but you are present to it. So when you are willing to stop, as your teacher is clearly instructing you, then there is a recognition of what has always been here. And the life from that point on can be true to that. It doesn't mean you have to live in a tranceless state. I'm a regular person. I have opinions and emotions and good days and bad days, and I'm not in a state of perpetual bliss, but I am always myself, as are you. Underneath all of the personality, underneath all of the ways that we have decided we're good or bad or perfected or imperfected. And underneath that is, and that's the complication. Underneath the complication is a depth of being that you already know, and that your teacher is supporting. But all of our conditioning is to look for something else, because it couldn't be me. It couldn't be right here.
Right.
Because it's always been right here, and you've always known it, but this just flips it from the foreground, from the background to the foreground. And this is, willingness.
So you met your teacher, and he said stop, and so then what was your journey like in discovering stop? So it sounds like everyone's going to have their own personal stop. One. So what was that like when you stopped? I know you said fear came up. Fear came up. Yeah.
It was terrifying at first, but that's not when I stopped. That's right before I stopped. That was all the reasons my mind was giving me, my thoughts were giving me, of why it was unsafe to stop. Because, in living one's life or as part of the human tribe, it is often unsafe to stop.
Yeah.
Because you can be caught, or you can be hurt, or you can be run over. So there's a way that in the safety of your own house or your own seat, or in this moment, we bring all of those precautions, the fear of stopping, where they're unnecessary. So in this moment, you're not in danger of being run over. In this moment, blessed moment, you're not in imminent danger of being attacked or hurt or left behind. So all of the things that we have about stop, all of the fears that we have, are really irrelevant. And we can intelligently see that. And so from that, we can get the courage to recognize, oh, he's saying just be here. And in this moment, just being here with no idea of what the next moment will be, what you will say, what I will say, what will happen. There is a recognition of the nectar of being, or the spaciousness of being. That is always here. It doesn't mean you have to be attuned to that in every moment. It just means that in any moment, when you find yourself caught up in the imagery of the mind or the suffering, your own unnecessary suffering, that you can take a moment and you go, oh, wait, if I stop just for a moment, a second, 5 seconds, what's here?
Right.
Then the mind itself gets trained to not believe itself. There's a way that the mind gets busted. And that's the mature mind and the intelligent mind, that it doesn't believe its own propaganda. And so then there is an intelligence to go when it's necessary to go, and to stop when you can stop.
Right. So it's taking a break to listen to that higher intelligence,
Yes.
which I never do. I mean, I'm trying to. I
But
am
you do.
trying to.
You must. You do. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be interested in what you're interested in. I'm not, I don't want to discount the other voices that
Right.
whip you forward to do whatever else you do, but it's very important, I think, to regard your spiritual journey as really what has brought you the nectar that you have of yourself, and to recognize that there was some choice made in your life at some point where you actually turned your attention to something that was bigger than the activity of your mind. And that's what I'm here to support.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was when my dad died. That's when, I mean, I thought I knew what life was about. And then I was like, I don't, sometimes it's death that helps you understand that you know nothing about life. And so
Yes.
that was the part. I don't know if I was turning inward, but I was looking outward and thinking, I don't understand what this is all about, which then helped me look someplace else, not necessarily inward for a while, but I think it was similar to you. I went on a journey probably about the same amount of time, but for me, it was a healing journey. So tell me about your experiences when you met Papaji. So you told me about his insight, but is that your main teacher? Your main guru is Papaji?
Papaji is my final teacher. I've had lots of teachers, and I respect them all, and I gained a lot from all of them. But when I met Papaji, I was really looking for some piece that was missing, and I didn't know what it was, and it was my own self.
Oh, that's just so sweet.
And so I have certainly felt no need or attraction to other teachings. I'm still discovering the depth of this teaching and the possibility of what it means to live a life in vigilance to this, vigilance in the sense of celebration of this.
You know, I went to a meditation retreat, and I walked in thinking, like, much like probably you did when you hit that 20-year point, thinking, you know, my life's pretty good. If I were to measure my life, this is stupid, but this is how my brain works. On a 10-point scale, I'm like 7 to 8 on an average day. And then I walked out in the meditation retreat saying, oh my gosh, the scale is infinite. I thought it was 10 points, but it's like, I'm only like 100. I don't even know what the scale is on. It's an infinite journey. So here you are, you've been traveling this journey for so long. What keeps on evolving and new things? You're like, you know, because you think, I don't know, I think of an evolved, awakened, enlightened being as like, okay, you climb the top of the mountain, you're done. But now I'm realizing that the mountain it continues to go up, or it continues to be infinite. So what have you learned over the course, like right now? What are you kind of learning about life itself, yourself? What are you learning that you didn't know?
Well, I think the mountain itself is limited, but the space that is above the top of the mountain and beneath the mountain and is all throughout the mountain is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this conversation with you, I am enriched and enlivened and
Mm-hmm.
deepened because I'm meeting another aspect of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a self-inquiry journey and a self-inquiry realization and a self-inquiry fulfillment. So, as I said, I have good days and bad days, and not all my meetings with people are blissful and in harmony,
Right.
but they're all contributing to the infinity of this space.
Right.
So
I see. So there's like
mm,
multiple manifestations of
mm,
you, and here you are
yeah,
meeting another
and
Asian version of yourself,
of
you
of
know,
oneself,
of
because
oneself.
it's not even of me. It's, let's
Right.
say, of you. So I'm
Right.
getting to meet myself as you,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
it's wow, it's thrilling. Mm.
So, how does that contrast with, okay, there was the part of you before you understood that you had this peaceful inner state, that you were one. You know, there was a part where I can read in a book, yes, I'm one.
Mm.
I
Mm.
believe, we're all one.
Uh,
You and I are, like, I can conceptually understand
mm.
it. But what was your felt expression, and how did that change over time from reading in a book and understanding it to like, oh no, I'm feeling
Mm.
oneness.
Well, it's night and day because direct experience is finally everything. You can read about a kiss, but until you really kiss, it's an abstract thought. You may want to or not want to, but it's same with any true experience. You can read about nature and how people are moved by nature and the thrill of nature, but until you've actually had an experience that nature is alive and it's real, it's an abstraction. It may be a beautiful abstraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that from reading or from looking at a painting or listening to music, we can have the direct experience. I mean, that's the power of art, and it's the power of meeting a teacher. It's the power of actually experimenting for yourself, of actually being still and knowing nothing, not knowing what you're supposed to feel or supposed to discover, but just discovering as a free agent of consciousness.
Hmm. So, what was it like when you discovered? I'm sure you've had many, many tastes along the way of
Mm.
discovering oneness. Can you kind of, I don't know if you can even describe, because I know these things are hard to put in
Mm.
words, but can you try to put in words what that felt was like when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm one? And then now when you meet with someone like myself, you're like, oh, I don't know what it is because I'm not you. I'm probably feeling a very different version of this than you. But can you tell me your first experience and what it is now?
Well, it was like, I'm sure I have described this in other places, and you're right, it is indescribable, but it was just like a lightning bolt.
Oh, wow.
So I had had beautiful experiences and moments of true clarity, as we all have at this point. But this was just as if I got flipped right side up. And what had been in the background was now the foreground.
Wow.
And it is the foreground. And so then my mind, which was stunned, like with a lightning bolt, but in a kind of bliss stunned, could honor its own source. So it
Ah.
wasn't anything outside my mind, but my mind wasn't absent from the discovery. It was enriched by it.
Ah.
And I would say I experienced lightning bolts, but in general, my experience is just one of this great wonder that well, the technology that we can
Right.
transcend time and space in this moment and be together,
Yeah.
that you have your experiences, and you're an alive, vibrant human being, and so we at least meet as these humans, these animals that are similar, and we know we have different points of view, and it's true. I don't think you can ever know exactly what anyone else is experiencing, but we can transmit to one another,
Mm.
and we can invite one another into the depth of what's possible.
Mm.
Not what we imagine is possible, but
Mm.
what's discovered is possible.
Mm. So I love the idea of the lightning bolt and actually having experiential proof that your mind said, "Oh, well, is that what we were after? Okay, I'm with you. I'm on
Yeah,
the journey now."
yeah. I was like, whoa,
Whoa, that
wow.
yeah.
It's, oh,
Wow, this
I
is what we're
get
shooting
it.
for. I'm okay, I'm on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
Because
that's
it was of
fascinating.
total benefit to my mind. It
Yeah.
was only my mind that was suffering
Yeah.
anyway.
Wow.
So it's the mind that gets awakened to what is already awake.
Hmm. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences,
Mm.
but somehow my mind's a little bit dense. It still isn't like, wait a second, that's the one. I don't think I've been hit. I have a felt expression of feeling like shaking as if I was
Mm.
hit by a lightning bolt, but
Mm.
not, it doesn't sound like the same kind of aha moment for you. Um,
Well, you've had enough that it has changed your life. I mean, and the shock of your father's death.
yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of lightning bolt. It's not a blissful one, but it's
No.
a shock
Right.
that turns you towards something else that's bigger
Mm.
than the life you knew before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. So when you I've been thinking about this because I'm a part of a transmission practice, and my
Mm.
teacher is transmitting energy
Mm.
through his eyes, and he says all his orifices. So he's doing a transmission practice. But I like you said, I'm wondering whether we're always transmitting.
Mm.
I mean, when because we have energy, so aren't we
Yes,
always transmitting our
yes.
energy? Whether hopefully not in a willful way, but in a kind of of a blending. I don't even know how to describe it way.
Well, we have an aspect of our brains is the limbic brain,
Mm-hmm.
and that's its nature is to read energy and to transmit energy. That's how we meet one another as a mother and child or father and child, and bond with one another. And we know you can walk into a room, and if people are agitated or suffering or overexcited, you feel that. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have to say a word that's comprehensible
Right.
because you comprehend it energetically. So
Mm.
it's just the way we're made up. And in general, we are transmitting our suffering. If we have a great day and we go into the store, we're transmitting our joy.
Right.
And then there is an even deeper level of transmission, which is deeper than the happiness or the misery. It's the transmission of being that I am. And this recognition of being is meeting your own recognition of being.
Mm. Mm.
And I've mentioned nature a couple of times because spring is happening here. I hope it's
Yeah.
happening in Seattle too. But it's like, oh, it is.
Right.
The blooms are happening and the earth is coming unfrozen. It's like, oh, it is. It's a
Mm-hmm.
transmission of being. Satchitananda.
Mm. Mm. So it's almost like a tuning fork. So when I'm with you, I'm feeling much more peaceful than I was literally moments ago when I was working on a set of PowerPoints on leadership that was like making me like, oh, you know, this is my contracted state moments ago. I'm feeling more peaceful.
Mm.
So it's almost, you're reflecting back to me
Mm.
a part of myself
Mhm.
that I didn't even
That's it.
realize was there, right? It's
That's
not
it.
like, see, I think what I'm learning from this conversation, I would have said, "Oh, you made me talking to you, did this,"
Yeah.
and part of that is true, right? Before talking to you, I was not in that state. I'm talking to you now, and I'm feeling more calm, peaceful, grounded. And so part of it is you, but part of it is you reflecting an aspect of me that I have forgotten about.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It's because if I'm talking to a wall, it's not the
Right.
same thing. You are
Right.
an alive, conscious being,
Mm.
and your attention is here. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm talking to you and your attention is somewhere else on what you've got to do next or your next
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoint meeting
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
Right.
Your attention is right here.
Right.
So we are really giving ourselves to this
Right.
moment of meeting.
Mm.
And to me, that word meeting is really significant. We are meeting intellectually, physically, but limbically and
Mm.
heartfeltly.
Mm. Mm. So I'm wondering if we're so our current world is so
Mm,
full of distraction,
mm,
electronics. I don't even know what the electronics
mm,
does to my limbic brain, but
mm,
I kind of don't think it's good.
mm.
So, how do we move from our current day realities, which include cell phones and computers and PowerPoints, and step back? I know that part of the answer I know is going to be just stop. I know
Mhm.
that's part of the answer. But how do we kind of embrace and harmonize ourselves? This is the reality of what
Mhm.
is, right? There's,
Yes.
how do you do it?
Well, it was interesting. I was just recently on Maui. I lived on Maui years and years
Mm,
ago, and we went back to Maui. We go back periodically in the winter, and it's gotten very busy. And there are traffic jams, and it's
wow.
like it's not the Maui I lived in.
Yeah.
And so I go through my opinions about that.
Hmm.
But then one night I happened to be outdoors and it was a beautiful clear night and the stars were out. And I realized in that moment I wasn't distracted by the traffic or the extra people that were there that I thought shouldn't be there. And I could just feel the energy of the
Mm,
island and the ocean and the air. It wasn't like that energy hadn't been there all the time.
right.
It was just a particular moment where I wasn't splitting my energy up into a million different pieces. So I think that each of us has to discover what we want. And if we want to transmit or be transmitted to by the cosmos or the night sky or the spring blossoms or each other, then technology clearly has a role. I mean, here we are on technology, but it's not the focus. It's we're actually
Mm,
using that to
right.
dive into something deeper.
Right. Yes,
And
that's your focus attention. So
yes,
you could have focused on the blinking lights, the crowds,
yeah,
which is part of what you're, initially focused because of the contrast of what it
that's right.
was, but instead you focused on the night sky and the water and all those different things. So similarly, I have the phone ringing. I've,
Mm,
someone, Mom, where are my shoes? I'm like, I could focus. I could focus on those things, or I could just focus on, the flower in front of me, or drinking a glass of water, or whatever it may
mm,
be. It's just a matter
beautiful.
of I'm just repeating what you've told me, so it is beautiful. Thank you.
Well, as you were saying it, I was thinking, sometimes you do have to attend to the cries that need your help right there, but you know that there's a moment
Hmm.
after that or whenever where you can just not be doing anything,
Hmm.
where you can just stop, where you're in for a moment where you don't have a future, you
Mm.
don't have a past, you're just
Mm.
here.
Mm. Mm.
And that's what gets overlooked, I think, in our technologically advanced age,
Hmm.
is because the future, is directing the present. And
Right.
that may be appropriate in certain instances, but there is a vast depth of beingness that is available for meeting and for being struck by
Hmm.
right now.
Right.
It, it's here.
Right. Right. So if we're focusing on technology in some ways, we're focusing on a future, unless like, and this is a beautiful example because we're using Skype and
Mm-hmm.
technology for us to be present to this very moment.
Yes.
So it could be used both positively and negatively. It's not necessarily the technology, it's the focus of your
And that
intention.
that sounds beautiful to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I did fly in an airplane to Maui, and I did rent a car on Maui. I did keep my cell phone when I was on Maui, but just a willingness to look underneath or something that
Mm,
none of that touches, something
mm,
that's always here.
mm. And I think I know your answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I was in this morning. I was in a writing group that I'm part of, and there were so many conversations about politics and the distress of politics in the very beginning, and it's kind of waned. But I've noticed it's like one of those things that if someone mentions it, it's like a seed,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched it like someone planted the seed, and then it just kind of grew, and it like took up all the space. And I just thought, I don't, okay, I've had this conversation a million times. It's not going anywhere. It causes me stress. And yet I have a very strong perspective that I think would irritate most people, where I think, well, it is what it is. Somehow, you know, Trump or whomever, Barack Obama, whoever your politician is that you may or may not like, is here. And so there's something for me to learn from it. And so I'm not sure what it is, but view it as a positive thing, or it may be hurtful hard, but like actually suffering through this is not helpful. So I have that kind of attitude, which I think is just a total conversation killer. but but when people are on a fury, but how do you focus on the positive? You know, I actually got up, went to the restroom because I thought I cannot have this conversation again. I just
Well,
don't want to.
I think there's a point where you don't want to keep contributing to the suffering. So it is a time of suffering, and I think it's a kind of alarming time in lots of ways,
Hmm.
in lots of parts of the world. I just had an amazing story with someone I know whose daughter was kidnapped in Guatemala.
Oh no.
She had to go to Guatemala, and she had to stay there 2 weeks and get a posse together, basically, to go into this sex trafficking
Oh
ring
no. Oh
to
gosh.
save her 15-year-old daughter. I mean, horrendous stuff that is
Yeah.
actually happening
Yeah.
in lots of places. And I think we're having horrendous things that are happening here, too. So there's a way that we hear that, and we need to know that because it informs us, and it informs us of the preciousness of our time, and how is it going to be used, and how can we support one another. But then there is a certain point where we start contributing to that suffering limbically by
Mm.
dumping into it. And I think that that's probably what drove you away from the conversation. It's got to get out of here. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if just being positive is the right answer, or actually being more active. I think it's very individual then. Some
Yeah.
people do retreat from the world. I mean, Ramana, who was my teacher's guru, retreated when he was 16 and then spent all of his life at the side of a mountain. But that's not for everybody. I think that we have to find our own way in this without going under.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody when we go under. We have
Yeah.
to somehow find strength.
Yeah. And I felt if I had contributed, it would have caused this kind of like, I don't even know. It wouldn't have felt positive, and
Mm,
I also didn't want to contribute to adding more fuel to the
yes.
flames. And so, it's a very tricky place to be right now
Yeah,
in the
it's a.
world, because you don't. It is like, am I just avoiding, or am
Mm,
I being self-loving,
mm,
or am I being ignorant? I mean, I know what the issues are. I watch news all the time, and those things frustrate me. But I listen, and then I kind of like, okay, stop, listen,
mm.
stop.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? What's happening? What could be other explanations
Mm.
that, or is the explanation the common explanation of what's happening? What's happening? Am I running away? It's very tricky
Well, yeah,
place.
I think you have permission to run away too. It's like
Yeah.
you have the freedom to avoid. And if that was what was happening in this conversation with your friends, good. There are times when it's absolutely appropriate to avoid. what's being thrown at you. So I don't know that we have to feel bad about avoiding. We all need rest, and when we rest, that means we're avoiding what's being active. And if we trust ourselves, or we trust this intelligent love, and this is really as in a spiritual life, and we trust that we will follow some inner voice to be active if that's what we are made to be, or to retreat if that's what we're made to be. That we don't have to feel bad about either one. Because often spiritual people talk bad about active people, and active people talk bad about spiritual people. And let's put that to rest, that we need all of it. And we each of us plays all of the roles. Sometimes we're active, sometimes we retreat. So we are in an imbalanced time. You know, our planet's imbalanced, our politics are imbalanced, our lives are imbalanced, and that's a time of uncertainty. I think we have the capacity, I know we have the capacity to open to that uncertainty. And from that, there is an intelligence that is waiting to be born.
I think that that's the key thing. I'm circling back to what you said earlier. If we just stop and say, what is it that what's inside of me that wants to respond? And it may be nothing. I'm walking away and using the restroom because no part of me wants to respond, or I need to be more active, or, I'm not sure, but it goes back to, I think, your comment of pushing you back into yourself and saying, what is it? Right. You know what I mean? It's about what is it that's happening for me at this moment, and how do I want to respond? And what I'm getting from you, which I think is just so beautiful, is there's no right answer.
That's right. It's a discovery.
Yeah.
And no one's discovered it for you before. It is your discovery.
Yeah. Wonderful. It has just been such a treasure and a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
I feel the same way, really.
Yeah, thank you so much. You are coming to East West Bookstore on April 5th. You're coming on April 5th to the Fremont Abbey from 7 to 8:30, and you're going to be talking about a lot of these topics about relationships. Is that right?
I'm not exactly sure what the title of the talk is, but it's the way that we meet the audience, me, the people who come up, that is really to get to this, to get to who am I, what do I want, how do I live freely.
Thank you for your beautiful words and work. Thank you. It's just been
thank you. I'm really honored
to
be on the show.
Thank you.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.